are streaming. All right. I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we're good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we're live.
All right, I'm recording.
From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American Greed Factory.
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes the candles will light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Yeah, let's see. Big show tonight. Lots of stuff going on. Trying some new streaming, and a dog is happy.
Or sad.
Happy yells.
Happy yelping. But yeah, here we are again, friends. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Oh boy. You want to just jump right in with F1? Because I don't want to talk about the news. It's too sad.
Oh. Just Norm Macdonald dying.
Yeah, that's sad. I miss his humor.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a pretty cool Italian Grand Prix. I think it was, or maybe it's called Monza, because we've had two races in Italy this year. One was in Imola, so I'm not sure which one they called which, but I forget. So it's just called the Italian Grand Prix. Bottas now he has his new fresh contract, and now he doesn't have to worry about Mercedes anymore. He had a hell of a weekend, so
Yeah.
he gets this was a sprint race weekend, so they have qualifying for a sprint race, and then how you finish in the sprint race is how you finish in the sprint race is how you start the grid for the Sunday race. So and Bottas came and got in pole position for the sprint race. And then he won the sprint race, which means he got 3 points. Lewis Hamilton just fell back for no reason. He screwed up his start first, and then he just fell back to 5th place. Because I know there was some uncomfortable stuff talking about. I was well, if Bottas is out front and Lewis is anywhere near him, obviously they're gonna say, hey, let Lewis by, even if he's faster, even if Bottas is faster than him, because that's just how close the championship is. So, yeah, Bottas got 3rd, Verstappen got 2nd, and Daniel Ricciardo got 3rd in the sprint race. But because they changed the engine on Bottas's car, he starts the race from the back of the field.
Okay.
Which is weird. Because I think they actually changed his engine before the sprint race, but the penalty doesn't go into effect till the race or something. I'm not exactly sure about how that. And I can't remember if he started from the back or if he started from the pit lane. I'm just going to say he started from the back. And then you got the race, and then it starts off as, so Max Verstappen is on pole because Bottas is in the back, and then Daniel Ricciardo is in 2nd, and there's a lot of interviews going on where just Lewis Hamilton's completely defeated. It's it's an easy win for Max. And we get to the start of the race, in the first corner, Daniel Ricciardo pulls out front for McLaren, which is a pretty good surprise. And he holds off Max Verstappen the whole time. He stayed ahead of Max Verstappen. and also Norris was up in third. So the McLarens are having a hell of a race. Then everyone starts to pit, and I think because of the new pit rules, Red Bull fucked themselves completely.
11-second pit.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's something like, because they instituted those new rules, and I think we're finding out that Red Bull had a lot of automated stuff with their pit stops.
Oh, okay.
Although weirdly, which Mercedes like pushed for this, Mercedes also fucked themselves in the pit, but it was only a 4-second pit, not 11. Because when Red Bull did their stop, they had the car back on the ground and everything was ready to go, but like all the lights weren't green, and so the guy had to like put the gun on the car, hit a button, and then he could go, and then take the wheel gun away from the car, and then they could go. Like he didn't really like extra tighten the wheel or anything like that. It was like already tight, but it was just that sensor or whatever. So, and then also weirdly, the fastest pit stop of the race was for Daniel Ricciardo and the McLarens. So just a hell of a weekend. But yeah, so then I can't remember when Hamilton pits, but he goes into pit because they put him on the hard tire because they wanted to go long to try and just stay out on the track as long as possible and let everybody else pit, and so you try to get like a window between all those people and maybe end out in front. I believe it's called an overcut. And so Hamilton's coming out of the pit, and he ends up racing Max Verstappen, and at the very first turn, he goes past the pit lane line, and he immediately like merges into traffic in front of Verstappen. This is a very fast straightaway, and Verstappen is carrying too much speed. Also, they get to the first and second corner. Hamilton puts a squeeze on Max, but also Max doesn't back out. And they have one of the weirdest, most casual crashes I have ever seen in F1. Because I heard, like, I'd come home, because I don't get to see the race live most of the time. So I just, like, saw the news that Hamilton and Verstappen crash. I was like, oh, yeah. Jesus, what happened this time? I was expecting some high-speed stuff. And it's just the weirdest thing. Verstappen gets up on the curbs, which starts bouncing his car around. Their back wheels touch, and that's where all the power goes. They're rear-wheel drive cars. And so they're like, so once they touch, they're like gears interlocking and just throwing each other around. And his Max Verstappen back of the car jumps up, swings around, and ends up on top of Lewis Hamilton's car, and it like knocks off the back air intake. Actually, it like conks Lewis Hamilton in the head, the back tire.
Oh wow.
Not too much, but just a little bit. Enough that people were making a deal out of it. It's like, is Hamilton have neck damage because his tire hit him? And like, I don't know, maybe. He was wearing that kinesio tape after the race, but so yeah, the championship leaders knocked themselves out of the race, so they both get 0 points. Although Verstappen did get 2 points from the sprint race, so he ends up ahead for the weekend.
Watching that crash in slow motion, I appreciate how hot those tires are.
Yeah.
Because when they go into the gravel, the tires are the rocks are immediately stuck on the tires. Like they're not going any. They're not just like being picked up and thrown. No, they're just stuck into the hot rubber.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Well,
okay.
Well, here's an interesting thing. You ever see like when they when the guy crosses the finish line and he wins the race, and you see him like he like pulls the car really close to like where the pit lane is, like where all the guys are yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
He's not doing that they're not doing that just to celebrate. So like throughout the race, there's like all these little rubber like pebbles that get created from the cars, from the tires. And so they're going by and they're picking up all that rubber to make sure that they have enough weight when the car is weighed so they aren't disqualified.
Nice. Or Formula One hijinks.
I was like, I think it's who is it? Danny O'Dwyer talks about stories about like in the old F1 days where like a guy would win a race and then like his team would come up and hug him and like put like wrenches and stuff in his like in his clothes.
Yeah.
So like they'd meet weight.
All the good old days.
But yeah, it's even though Monza's a very fast track, it's also still narrow for these. And these cars are huge, so it's still hard to pass.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't end up being exciting, but it's an exciting finish because Daniel Ricciardo wins for the first time, not with Red Bull. So it's nice to see it because he's been having a pretty tough year because Lando Norris is pretty clearly the better driver of the team, but also it's a new car and a new team and all that stuff. And so it's just really nice to see him get a win. Even there's kind of a scary moment towards the end of the race where like Lando Norris is asking, "Hey, I'm faster than Ricciardo. Should I race him?" They're like, "Absolutely not." Well, they didn't say that, but like in as many words they did say that. It's like they're about to get a 1-2, which was weirdly, this is the first 1-2 finish for a team this whole year, and McLaren does it. So, I mean, there's been a lot of like 1-3s and stuff, but no 1-2s. So, you got Daniel Ricciardo wins, Lando Norris is second, and Bottas comes in third. A hell of a race from the back of the field, gets a podium. Hell of a weekend for Bottas. Like he was the only one.
Didn't you get that because the one guy had a 5-second penalty for improper something?
Yeah. He jumped off the track, made a lasting advantage, and didn't give the place back. I believe. I don't think it was against. It wasn't against Bottas. I believe it was against Leclerc.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bottas was trying to pass him the whole time, but like couldn't get past Perez. But all he had to do was just stay within 5 seconds, and he takes a spot. And so yeah, that's what happens.
Because you can't shortcut around the track.
Yeah, you
No
can't.
matter how insanely dangerous that is.
Yeah, because all these curves were like really high. Because every time someone hit a curve, is launching the car into the air.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good way to fuck up your car. But yeah, so you can't go off the track and come back with a lasting advantage, is what they call it. So he should have gave the place back to Leclerc and just like came back at him later on. But they just said like, fuck it. Like we'll see if we can get 5 seconds ahead of him, and they did not. Like he ended up finishing behind Leclerc because of the penalties. But.
Yeah, these guys were deep in the brakes in this race. You could tell, too. I mean, some of them were coming in like, oh, that guy, I'm not even race cars. I was like, that guy's coming in hot. Oh, man.
Well, yeah, and interesting with the Verstappen Hamilton crash, the stewards ended up ruling that it was Max's fault, and he'll take a 3-place grid penalty for the next race.
Oh, okay.
I think mostly because I think it was like, in some ways you could see it as Hamilton's fault because he obviously put the squeeze on Max Verstappen, but I think they looked at a lot of telemetry, and basically if Hamilton wasn't there, Max Verstappen was carrying too much speed into that corner, and he basically was never going to make it. And because of that, they're like, well, you're at fault because you fucked up. But then also Red Bull's probably going to use the opportunity because like both Mercedes and Red Bull are kind of like needing to switch to a new engine. It's going to be their 4th engine, which means it's I believe it might be a 20 grid place penalty. It basically will put you at the back of the field. So they might just take it because of they already have that other penalty, because you can't get like you just serve all your penalties in one race and you're done. So
Yeah, you don't have to spread them out. You can serve them concurrently.
and next race is Russia, which usually that's like Bottas's special is Russia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he wins there all the time. And it's usually people say it's one of the most boring races. So, so yeah, they might just be handing that over to Mercedes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really nice to see that. Yeah, and everybody was, yeah, it's nice to see McLaren get a win, because it's like all these fluke wins that have been happening the last couple of years. It's like, oh, McLaren's got to get one of them. But like the cool thing with this race, it wasn't a fluke win. Like they got out front and they fucking kept it there.
Yeah, it wasn't like the two guys crashed and then they took their place. No, they were ahead of those guys.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So just, yeah, it's nice to see a nice team on the come up get a good victory. But yeah, and then just shoeies abound. I don't know if you know this, but Daniel Ricciardo does a thing called a shoey, where he takes his shoe off. Yes.
Yeah.
And so like he was giving a shoey to everybody. Him, Lando Norris, Zach Brown, their boss, and just like everybody was doing a shoey. It's like, yeah, we're just breaking COVID protocols all over the place here. It's like, but it's okay. Whatever.
Yeah, you can drink out of your own shoe, but not someone else's.
That's the weirdest fucking thing. So I mean, he's won I think 9 races, but he usually does a shoey when he gets a podium, so he has even more podiums. And when he does shoeys with other people, they drink out of his fucking shoe. I'm like, dude, take your own fucking shoe off and fill it up.
Yeah.
Don't drink out of his shoe.
No.
I wonder how much those shoes cost. Those gotta be like $1,000 flame resistant shoes.
Crazy, because all he's got to do is sign his name to it and hand it to someone, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, there's, that'll get you some money. And everyone will want that shoe that didn't get that shoe. I don't know. Let me look that up, because now I'm curious. Is there an F1 racing shoe?
Yeah, I think there is, actually. Because F1's gotten pretty fucking big. There was a bunch of shit in the press this week about what's the really influential driver that wears weird fucking fashion shit all over time and shows up with swag and shit.
Well, all of them but Lewis Hamilton.
Okay, Lewis Hamilton, he was going into some place with an Instagram model. They're like, oh, good for him, but everybody was freaking the fuck out for some reason. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, he was at the Met Gala, whatever the hell that is.
Yeah, and a way to show off awful fashion for decent people. I don't know. It's weird shit. I don't know why the hell anybody cares about that shit, but at the same time,
I mean, it's like a thing for the fashion industry or whatever. I mean, AOC was there wearing a white dress that said "Tax the Rich" on it, so whatever.
Well, I guess somebody was talking about the ticket cost to go there or whatever, and
yeah, it's like 10 grand or something.
Oh, 35 grand.
Oh, okay. It's even
was what somebody posted or what. I don't know how accurate that is, but at the same time, yeah, they're talking about how expensive it is, because somebody was like, "Oh yeah, if she's part of the, rich or whatever." It's like, no, she spent $35,000 to wear a dress that's tax the rich. Not exactly what I would call a power.
And I'm not sure if she paid that or if she was invited. I can't. I
don't know. Like Kim Kardashian supposedly wore this black suit or whatever that made it so you couldn't see anything.
Okay. Yeah, I've been seeing stuff about that. No, the one was the VMA awards where they had what's her name? She was crap. I immediately forgot her name. She was in the Transformer movies and
Megan Fox.
Yeah, Megan Fox. Yeah, she's wearing this dress. She's basically wearing a bikini and then just a see-through dress, and then so everybody was going crazy about that.
Yeah, so racing shoes have hidden laces. They have a certain amount of fire protection because they have to be FIA approved. And then everyone has their own, Mercedes Puma makes a lot of them, but they have the different team logos. and then a pair of Leclerc signed shoes is $700 on eBay. So yeah, they're basically just a really light sneaker, like almost a wrestling shoe that has some safety stuff in it. But yeah, they're not much more than $200. Unless you get into like Mercedes Patronus shoe, that's like $190. Yeah.
I mean, that seems reasonable considering how all the other shit is, how expensive everything else is.
Yeah.
Because I think those helmets start at like $3,000.
Yeah, I could see that.
And there's like,
I know I had to spend $500 on a football helmet because of the new kind, which I didn't mind, but safety first. It's time to dive head first into a shallow pool of safety. Wonder shows in. Well, they were a lot different from the earlier helmets I paid for, because these had like different honeycomb patches in different places. It wasn't just the all-inclusive foam. Yeah. It looked like they actually like designed it to like, these are the trauma points, and then there were air pockets in there.
Yeah.
So it didn't bunch up, and it was whatever the NFL wears. It's the ones with the 2 slits on the top.
No, I thought there's something that the college switched to that the NFL hasn't.
I don't. They all kind of look the same.
Yeah. Well, no. There's college ones where they have like basically like air impact bags like on the outside of the helmet, and people think they look goofy because it's basically because like what players do, because they're evil, is they tackle people, and because the helmet is so hard, it's like, well, it's protecting my head, but it's gonna fucking hurt that guy, so I'm gonna hit him with my helmet. I'm gonna go head first into this guy. So like players use their helmet as a weapon, and so there's supposed to be a new design helmet that like mitigates that. So it's like it protects the person that is taking the hit, but it also protects the person hitting. So
I remember his second year, they had these things called beehives that they put on outside the helmet. Now, they only wore them in practice because they didn't want the guys getting hurt, but that was like another layer of that material. But the problem is it made your head really heavy because you're just adding weight.
Yeah.
It was also distracting in your vision because your helmet's out like, this much further all the way around. So those went away, though. You don't see those as much, but I think you do in practice. Though.
Yeah.
Well, there's this like material that basically it's almost liquid, but then when you apply force to it, it just becomes instantly solid and absorbs a lot of the impact.
Yeah.
It's like those orange like hammers you see everywhere or whatever.
Like hammers, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And it's like, so yeah, that's been around for a while.
What do they call that? Non-Newtonian fluid?
Yeah, non-Newtonian fluid. And apparently they use that in the helmets, but I guess I don't know who actually uses it anymore.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff comes and goes. They haven't redesigned shoulder pads in a long time. So. All the rugby guys swear to God that the American football players wouldn't have the problems if they didn't do shoulder pads, because it's like you would be a lot less inclined just to slam into each other.
Yeah. That's like how players use the helmets. Is like it's like, oh, this will protect me, but it'll hurt the other person. Where if that wasn't there, you'd probably be a bit more. Well, actually, no. Man. If they got rid of helmets in football, it would just be massive casualties in the first year.
Yeah. Like I said, you there started to be a turning point in football when you had like 300-pound linemen that could run like a decent quarter mile and stuff. It's like, oh, we're at a next level of human now. It's like these people could, because one of the guys that was like, I don't know if he was an All-American, but he went to play, for Big Ten school. Like, he was a lineman. He was a big, huge guy, but he did track and field in the off season just so he could kind of stay in shape. And he was amazingly good. He wasn't winning very much, but to see a big guy like that do top 3 all the time was pretty impressive. But the only reason he did it was to stay in shape, because he was one of those guys, I think he was like 260, 270 in high school. Now he's like well over 300 in college football. He's in his 4th year. But yeah, he could probably still fucking do an impressive sprint. That's a lot of science in that. Now, it's not a science that I don't know if you're going to live to an old age, but
I forget what it was. I read something weird about sumo wrestlers where it's like the amount of weight that they carry. It's like, well, that's got to be unhealthy, but how they work out, they're healthy, and like when they finish their careers, they're like, there's something about how sumo wrestling works that they're able to drop the weight with no long-term ill effects for having carried that weight.
Yeah, there's they used to have like, I don't know what we'd call them, like step down camps or something they would do at the end of their career.
Yeah.
Where they could rapidly lose that weight and not like have heart attacks and shit.
Yeah.
But as we learned from Freakonomics, sumo wrestling is the most honest sport in the world.
I missed that chapter. What happened?
Oh yeah, how you can just prove statistically like the game is fixed.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They looked at all the sumo wrestlers for 10 years and they looked at their stats and their skills and their scores. There's like, there's no way statistically these people should be winning. Because they had like, especially when foreigners started going into the Japanese realm, it's like, oh yeah, those guys don't stand a chance. I wonder why. Giant Hawaiian booth and stuff that could just tear the place apart. And it's like, they never seem to win.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff in Japan with fighting sports and things being rigged that's probably mob controlled.
Yeah, probably. But the guys from Freakonomics can prove it.
Yeah.
That was the most interesting thing in that book, except for the things about how, hey, you know why crime stopped in America or fell to, generational lows? It's, Roe versus Wade. Should we publish this? No, but we're going to.
I forgot what I was going to bring up.
We're talking about sumo wrestlers.
It's heard something about like highlight is also kind of like that, where like highlight is just purely made up. It's like it might as well be rollerball. It's like it's not, like it looks like a sport, but it's all a sham.
Gambling controlled.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see when you realize how dangerous highlight is. Like, wow, that's the fastest ball thrown in sport by a huge margin. But there's no like Pele of that sport. It's just a lot of guys get paid to make sure that the gambling franchises make money.
And also, like me and Andrew, we get to review All Out. We'll see what we've remembered about All Out. All Out happened like 2 weeks ago. It was AEW's big pay-per-view, their biggest pay-per-view they've ever done.
And it was All Out.
Yeah. It was a really good show. I wouldn't say there's only one match that was like exceptional. All the other matches were just like pretty good.
They're normal.
The crazy one was the cage match between the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks. That was a fantastic, awesome, crazy fucking match. That they only jumped off the cage once. Like I was like, because the Lucha Brothers are fucking crazy, so I was like worried the whole time. It's like, oh god, Ray Phoenix is gonna do something stupid off the top of that cage. Like, it's already 20 feet tall. Let me jump 5 feet further in the air on top of somebody. But luckily they didn't do. Probably the craziest thing it did is Penta El Zero Miedo gave Matt Jackson a Canadian destroyer off the top rope, and it looked like it did a pretty good number on his head and neck that he is still recovering from. But
wow, I'm looking up that maneuver right now.
It's kind of like a spinning pile driver, which it's safer in ways because like a pile driver, if you fuck it up, you can just drop a guy in the head. But like with a Canadian destroyer, because you're rotating, you can still kind of like hit the guy's head in the ground, but like it wouldn't be just like directly dropping on his head. You'd kind of be falling away from the impact. But that was probably the best match. I like the Eddie Kingston and Miro match, though it seemed that Andrew did not like it. I don't know, somebody didn't like the way their hits were too fake, even though Miro's chest was just covered in blood. At the
Yeah, I
end.
mean, at some point I was like, yeah, this looks like shit because it's just like slapping. I mean, I know that's the way they do it because closed fists aren't necessarily a thing, and also just like you'll do more damage with a closed fist than an open one. But at the same time, like I did not like the first. I mean, the first couple of matches are very, I don't know, it's very lackluster.
Technically, in wrestling, you're not supposed to hit your opponent with a closed fist. You can be disqualified for it, but you know it's pro wrestling, so you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Or some people use it as their finishing maneuver. It's like because I remember in New Japan Pro Wrestling there was a match where a guy was just like punching the guy with a closed fist, and the ref was like coming up and stopping. He's like, no closed fist, no closed fist, and like he was about to disqualify him, and then he just kicked the guy in the head. It's like, what? I didn't punch him.
True.
So yeah, I always like, so what they have is what's called forearm shivers, and they're kind of like doing this, and you hit them with your forearm, which I always was mistaking them as doing that thing where like in Hollywood where like you throw a punch, and then the other guy like swings his head to make it look like he got punched in the head. I thought they were doing that and just like fucking up the camera angle, and it just looked bad. It's like, oh no, he's hitting him with his forearm intentionally, like because you're not supposed to punch people with your fist. So. Also, technically, you're not supposed to like. It used to be illegal to do a move off the top rope.
Really? When?
Like in the 40s or something like that.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, wait a minute. That's like, I don't know
So,
much
like,
about wrestling, but I know that those are pretty common.
So yeah, so like in the 40s or something, like I think it was in the South too. But like, if someone was going to a top rope, that was a heel move. Like it was like somebody was being dastardly and was going to injure the other opponent. And also, they would lose the match, but they don't care because they just want to injure the person. But, yeah, like I think that went away pretty quickly. Then what's the Britt Baker Chris Statlander match was pretty good. It's amazing. Britt Baker is wrestling with a broken wrist, but she's really determined to make that work. So.
Okay.
I'm gonna wrestle and be a dentist and have a broken wrist. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I couldn't really tell. I mean, to be honest, like, if she had a broken wrist, like, I probably could have assumed that, I guess, but I didn't think of it.
Yeah, she had like a clever costuming where like it kind of looked like it was a part of her outfit that her cast on her wrist. But I mean, she's the current champion. So yeah, she retained, but it was a really good match. Chris Statlander is great, and she's super athletic, and like, I know it's not thing to say to a woman, but she's like, she has size and athletic ability that just seems impressive.
Yeah.
What other matches do we have? Because I'm just going off the top of my head. Oh yeah, actually, like, they had the weird one because they had the CM Punk Darby Allin match, was probably the most anticipated, and to us it felt the weirdest, because like that crowd was just ready to explode, and that match was very methodical and slow, and you just have this crowd just like waiting to cheer for anything like big, but they're just kind of doing like headlocks and stuff and like exchanging holds. It was like, well, this kind of seems kind of lame. But like later on, I saw other people do reviews of it, and it was like there was a lot of references to other matches, like from other people. So we just didn't get the references, so it didn't seem that we didn't really know what we were looking at. But yeah, but it really picked up at the end. Like they really pulled it together at the end. So it was it was a good match for that. Also, like Darby had extra like black makeup on, and so like by the end of it, like and CM Punk has like these white wraps that go like almost all of his arm, and it was just like it looked like he just punched charcoal the whole time. They were just covered in black from the makeup from Darby Allin. So,
Okay.
And then, oh man, I'm forgetting all the other Yeah, man. Now I feel bad that I forget all the matches. It's been 2 weeks. I'm not looking up anything right now. I'm just going off the top of my head. I don't know, Andrew. Do you have any other things that you liked about it?
Or Skinny Alex Jones was good against the Japanese wrestler. Like that was interesting.
Oh yeah, John Moxley and Hitoshi Kojima. It's Kojima. I know that. Yeah, that was a good match. Yeah, they just beat the shit out of each other.
Damn it. Now I'm blanking. El Idolo's match didn't happen, so that was disappointing. I kind of wanted to see a second match from him.
They did that match on Rampage last week.
Yep.
And it was really good. So
okay, well, damn it. I'm sure somebody was hurt and just needed extra time or something, or somebody really.
No, it's because the Pac is from the UK and they've like kind of upgraded a lot of their COVID protocols when it comes to like going to different countries, and so he was literally just kind of like locked out of the country for a while, so that's why he couldn't get here. So as far as I'm led to believe, I don't know. But.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I mean, I'm not really gonna be mad about it because it's not like that. Not like they didn't have a lot more stuff that going on in that show. I mean, there wasn't the all-female.
Casino Battle Royale. Yeah, that was another.
That was interesting. It wasn't probably done as well as it could have been, but it was interesting.
Yeah, so the Casino Battle Royale, it's kind of their take on the Royal Rumble, which in the Royal Rumble, so a Battle Royale is when you have a bunch of people in the ring at once, and then you throw everybody over the top rope, and that's how you eliminate it. And then I believe Vince McMahon invented this, but he came up with the Royal Rumble, where instead of having everybody in there at once, it's like you start with two guys, and every 2 or 3 minutes, a guy comes into the ring. And like what's great about the Royal Rumble is that like, it's you can bring surprises. You don't necessarily know who's coming out at what number all the time, and they get their entrance, and it's like cool. But how AEW probably try to put their stamp on it and do something different. They have it like they have it as sets of cards. So they have like the diamonds and the hearts and the clubs and the spades, and it's like 5 wrestlers come out at once. And the first time they did it, like it's just like all the wrestlers came out. They play some music to whoever's the most like important person in the group, and then they just go to the ring. And it's like, wait, who's on there? And like, and then they kind of delayed it where they have like the group comes out, and then they play everybody's music, but it's just kind of like back to back to back to back, and then like people don't really get their full entrance, and then there's stuff going on in the ring at the same time. And they don't know what to cut to, and so it just ends up being a big problem. But ultimately, so what you have is you have the 4 suits come out, and then they have the Joker, and the Joker is always a surprise. And so the surprise for this is that Ruby Riott, who was in WWE as Ruby Riott, is now, they let her go, and so she came in. Now she is Ruby Soho, and she comes in to the song from Rancid called Ruby Soho, which was bestowed to her by the singer of Rancid. Like they were friends, and like, I think you should be Ruby Soho, and here's my song. And so she gets all that stuff, and it was a really cool. She ends up winning the Battle Royale, and it's just a great moment. She's like in the ring celebrating, and there's a ref that she used to work with a lot of times in the indie scenes, and she just notices him, and you see her just go, "Hi, Bryce," and she just hugs him. It's just a great moment because like she's a very talented wrestler, and she just got fucked in WWE. They didn't use her. Like the most thing they use her for is like when Natalia's dad died, and like she would use images of her father and put it on a table and like basically disgrace her father like a week after his death, because like that's wrestling. It's like, oh, we should exploit this. Like that's what they had her doing, is just be this really despicable heel. Well, which she can be good at, but like that subject matter was terrible.
Somebody's actual father dying is probably not a source of mirth.
Not really, no.
So yeah, Ruby Soho is an AEW. Then you had the last match was the championship match between Kenny Omega and Christian Cage, which was also like a really good match. They had one of the weirdest table breaks I've seen, where Christian Cage spears Kenny Omega off the ring, because they're like on the outside but on the edge of the ring, spears him onto a table, and then like the right side breaks normally and the left side breaks by the legs of the table just shoot through the table.
Okay.
And it stabs the guy in the ribs, and he's like bleeding the rest of the match. I was like, was fucking weird.
Yeah, it's like those table legs suddenly become impromptu spears.
Yeah. But Kenny Omega ends up winning. There's kind of a brawl where like the Elite, which is like the heel faction, and Kenny Omega's guy, which makes up Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, the Good Brothers, and yeah, I think that's it for right now. So they're out there beating down Christian Cage just because they're having the audacity of challenging Kenny Omega for the championship. And then the Jurassic Express comes out to try to come to Christian Cage's aid, and they all get beat down. And then Kenny Omega's talking about like how he gets on the mic and he's like telling the crowd, "It's like, I'm the best in the world. No one can stop me." It's like, the only people that can stop me either aren't here, are retired, or they're already dead. And then the lights go out, and then we get Adam Cole comes to AEW. He makes his debut, which I know you don't know who Adam Cole is, but he's from NXT. He was the top guy in NXT.
Okay.
And so yeah, he's in AEW, and Adam Cole's great. He is part of like what I consider to be the best wrestling match I've ever seen, which was him and Johnny Gargano at Takeover New York 3 or 4 or something like that. It was a great show. So yeah, he shows up, and but in the YouTube storyline of what happened, because when Adam Cole went to NXT, their YouTube show, they wrote him off by having it that they poisoned his Monster Energy drink and killed him. And so
wow, what deep storytelling they have.
So like when he gets out there, he's like acting mad at them. He's like, it's like, hey, you remember what you did? They're acting like you actually killed him and brought him back to life or whatever for a bit. But then you see Jungle Boy like kind of crawling up, because you think like for a moment you think Adam Cole's a good guy, and then Adam Cole super kicks Jungle Boy in the face. It's like, nope, he's part of the heel group. And then they start doing they used to do a thing in PWG where like both the Young Bucks would kiss his cheek, and he's like laughing. He's just like, you're here, and they kiss his cheek, and he's like, ha ha. It's like it was funny. So, and then Kenny Omega gets back on the mic again. Oh well, actually, they give Adam Cole the mic, and he's already come up with a catchphrase they'll take on, where he's just like, "Who wants to hear story time with Adam Cole, baby?" So, yeah, because one of the great things about Adam Cole is like he has the best call and response in wrestling, where he just he'll crouch down and like just kind of move back and forth, and he'll shoot his hands up in the air like this, and he'll just say his own name. He'll just yell Adam Cole, baby. It's Adam Cole, but Bebe's the little signature on the end of it. And then when he does that, the whole crowd yells it with him. And it's like fucking 15,000 people yelling Adam Cole, Bebe. It's impressive. He has all these little like hand movements and gestures for like in NXT. In his entrance song, there's a part where like just somebody says boom, and he'll just sit there and like he's kind of like has this thing where he like kind of points at himself, and he's like boom, and then he'll just go boom at the point in the song where it says boom, and then everyone says boom. He just has all these great things that like call and responses and hand gestures. That's great. But it's great that he joined AEW because he's short and Vince McMahon would have done nothing with him, so he'll be appreciated here.
Vince McMahon only gets off the tall boys. Promotes.
Oh, I heard like what they had in mind for him is like they were going to turn Keith Lee heel, and he was going to be Keith Lee's manager who hides behind Keith Lee. It's like, oh, that sounds awesome.
The guy that works out constantly.
Yeah, a guy who's like one of the most creative wrestlers in the world. Let's have him not wrestle because he's not 6'7". Fucking idiots.
I mean, that's why I was so mad about the fucking match with like, oh yeah, both these guys are supposed to be like thin and quick, and it's like, oh yeah, they don't do shit with it. But like, yeah, it's because it's like watching two mobile people be sloths or not a good fucking match. I mean, I get that they're not like one guy was like, hey, he hadn't wrestled in a long fucking time, and the other guy like fucking he's trying to help him look good. He's not trying to like, hey, I look good. This guy looks like shit, and he still won. That's not a real fighting aesthetic. I don't win because I'm out of shape and I get to take a hit. I'm not Homer Simpson. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I get why, like that match is programmed the way it is because, that's exactly what you want to do if you're bringing a guy in and shit. You don't make him look like crap and,
yeah,
it's like you said, if that guy loses, the crowd probably destroys the building.
Yeah, there's no way because I could see like personally how CM Punk would like want Darby Allin to win to really put him over. It's like, well, this will be huge to his career, but you can't go to Chicago and have his first match back be a loss. Like that place would be burned to the ground.
Burned to the ground. They would put candles near the ashes. Like, oh, somebody died.
But Adam Cole shows up. It's not even the end of the surprises. So yeah, Kenny Omega gets back on the mic and he's like doing his thing where he says goodbye and goodnight, and then it gets interrupted by Flight of the Valkyries, which was Daniel Bryan's music in WWE, but now it's a new version of. It starts with Flight of the Valkyries and then it becomes a different song. It's his new interesting. So in WWE, he's Daniel Bryan, but on his real name and what he went on the indie scenes is Bryan Danielson, because that's how creative they are. So Bryan Danielson makes his debut in AEW, which Daniel Bryan was one of their biggest stars in WWE. So this whole night was just like huge because it's like, look at all these awesome people coming to AEW because that's where everybody wants to go. And also recently, like AEW's been beating Raw in the ratings for the last couple of weeks, and like USA spending $5 billion for that show, and TNT is definitely not spending that much on AEW.
Right.
So yeah, it was a cool night of wrestling. Only like was it 4 or 5 hour show?
It was like 4.5 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, like we talked about before, like I kind of wish we were there just because one, it'd be nice to be there and actually see it in person, but also cut out all the bullshit advertisements and crap all the way through because that would have been nice too. Obviously, I mean, it's not, crap for that reason, but it's nice not to have like a bunch of talked up stuff the whole time. And I guess it explains the story more and all
yeah,
that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that was helpful for you because you don't necessarily know any of the stories of them.
I just know two men want to fight. Maybe it's about a shoe, maybe it's about a lost love, who knows? I mean, I think if they're going to fight for it, it must be important, right? I mean,
I forgot
who am I to judge?
I forgot about that part in the Young Bucks match. They have a thing they did in PWG and they brought it here because they have a whole thing with shoes now where they have expensive shoes, and they had like some $1,000 Nike shoe that one of their stooges threw into the ring, and it was covered. The whole bottom was covered in thumbtacks, and he super kicked the guy in the face, and he was bleeding all over the fucking place. And after they won the match, he went up to hug his daughter because she was there, and he covered her in blood. It was weird and.
Yeah, I mean the Lucha Brothers were very covered in blood. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much was self-inflicted or like, hey, you can cut me here or do this here and I'll bleed a lot. because yeah, like I think we talked about before, like head wounds bleed a lot, so they look worse than they are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like just looked like he was basically blinking through blood like most of the match.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it's up to him to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, even Bret Hart's book and stuff like that. It seems like it's not the first time and the last time they're going to do that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, I think the blood on Pentagon was just the kick in the face from the thumbtacks, but I believe Ray Phoenix did gig, as they call it. He cut himself in the head somewhere. So.
okay.
As far as I know, yeah, you never know. That's the magic. Like, was that real or not? So.
I think I prefer less magic. I don't in a match. I mean,
yeah, sometimes they only bring out the blood for like pay-per-views, because then your audience is more guaranteed to be older. Although
Yeah.
they did do a fucking death match on television, which was fucking crazy, like with light tubes and shit. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Drenched in blood.
I mean, I saw this one bump the other day where it was like in CZW, a guy threw glass, and he turns around and he's like screaming, and it's like, it seems to be okay, and then it's just like what looked like just blood started to pour out of like thousands of punctures in his back. It's like, oh Jesus Christ! It looked like somebody took a sponge and just started squeezing it full of blood. Which is easier. At least it wasn't just some huge laceration. It was just a bunch of small punctures. So it's like, but it looked bad. But yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Still looks ugly.
it does.
Those deathmatch guys swear that like all that glass and stuff like that, it's safer than actual wrestling, because it's just a surface wound. It's not an internal injury.
Like a concussion or something. Yeah.
I like in GCW, like when they're using light tubes and there's like the dust after they break a light tube on somebody, and it's like, oh, that spooky dust is out there. It's like, yeah, it's like,
Stuff
yeah,
all carcinogenic.
yeah, the cancer cloud you're breathing in.
Tonight's death match: depleted fuel rations. Nuclear reactor.
Oh man, no. That would not be as impressive, probably, because like how much those things weigh for how small they could be. Like you could have like 100 pounds of uranium and it'd just be a little rod, and nobody would appreciate how heavy that actually is if you hit somebody with that.
Looks like a drumstick, but you have to pick it up with both hands if you were a strong man. Weighs like 80 pounds.
All right. I think. How much time do we have left? Anyway,
8 minutes.
yeah, we'll go by. We'll end the all out stuff here, and then we'll come back for a 2-minute warning. So, I will call you guys back.
Alrighty.
we're back.
We're streaming. We're ready to go. Gonna do some 2-minute warnings on video games.
Yeah. Or whenever our lists get too big, we implement the 2-minute warning, so we make sure to just knock everything out.
Good news for my wife. She does not have coronavirus for another night of nursing. Dude, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's tested twice now. It's like, oh, boy. And it's important because we're, no, I'm not going to say it because we'll get jerked off.
Or Twitch.
Or Twitch, or whatever. All right, so let's get started with some video games that I know one of them. Played one.
Yeah, it's probably the last game Nathan played.
Yeah. Let's start off with Alien Isolation.
Yeah, so I actually bought the game when it came out, and I just never played it. And then it came to, well, actually, no, it was weird. It like kind of broke when I was playing it. It was like, I'll wait till a patch comes out, and then I waited till a patch for 7 years. Now it came out. It's on Game Pass, so I eventually just picked it up. And
yeah,
aesthetically, a perfect game.
Nope.
This. It's even like, I think it's like 7 years old. Still looks great. It does this combination of finding a place of using the aesthetics of the original Alien movie, and then kind of, because it's in between Aliens, like kind of merging stuff from that. It's like, well, where would the tech be here? So it's kind of a merging of that stuff, and it's all that stuff is really well done. I really like I don't know how they do it, but they have these interstitial things when the screen's loading, and they have like it looks like an old CCT, like kind of grainy footage of the Sevastopol station, and it looks like a shot of a model through like a security cam, but it's like, well, that's all just computer generated, but it looks like a real model on a security cam. It's like that, yeah. A lot of details are very well done. Unfortunately, the game is way too long and unfair.
Yes, I actually played through this beast, which I usually don't do because I don't have patience for this kind of stuff. But because I like it's like, oh, they got all the aesthetic things right, which again, me basically functionally illiterate, if you make it look cool, you're going to draw me in. But yeah, the saving features didn't work right. And
oh yeah, the save game was terrible. But
yeah. So not only did you die, but it didn't have a good save feature. So that's all we can say for Alien Isolation. Alright. So on to Psychonauts. Okay, you're gonna delete it. Psychonauts 2.
Yep. Gee.
Any time now.
Okay. Yeah, Psychonauts 2 is, of course, the sequel to Psychonauts. Well, actually, technically, it's a follow-up to Psychonauts Rhombus of Ruin.
I've never heard of this, but that's hilarious.
It's basically like Harry Potter, but like with like mind powers and stuff. It's incredibly well done. It's very charming. It's very clever. A lot of clever stuff. Some of the most funniest things. A lot of the just like background stuff is incredibly funny. Like I had the funniest laugh out loud moments with this game. There's a part where like you go to this casino and there's like these skeletons that are trying to win. They're like rich skeletons that are trying to win a baby. They win the baby and they're like, oh, I can't wait to exploit his new identity for tax purposes.
You think it's something sinister and satanic. It's just rich people not paying taxes.
And there's another one where like there's just these two people talking, and this guy's like, Cheryl, we can't let him know, and she's like, I know, and he's like, we wanted to be this best surprise party this year. She's like, yeah, especially after he's been so supportive after he found out about our affair. Yeah, so it's like
There's a good humor in this game.
yeah. I mean, this is Double Fine. That's like what they do is charm and stuff like that. And the gameplay's fine, and it's just super fun. I really like it, and it's on Game Pass, and it's incredibly charming. So pick it up.
All right.
Game Pass, never pay for a game again.
We could let that play out.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're on to Axiom Verge 2.
Yeah, of course, this is the sequel. This is a game made by one guy.
All right.
It's the first one was in the vein of Metroid, like the original Metroid.
The original. Okay.
Yeah. And you just like gather up abilities, and then it's a side-scrolling shooter essentially. This one is more in the vein of the Castlevania Symphony of the Night, where like you're gathering abilities and you're gonna have to like go back to places. Interesting. The guy made the gameplay decision where like you can go the whole game without killing any enemies. Like you don't have to kill anything if you don't want to. The game you don't really have a gun in this game. It's a lot of melee combat and abilities. And it's like this super weird, like in between world where it's all like technology, and there's just like this mishmash that's almost like, like if H.R. Geiger was more aesthetically pleasing. It's like stuff like that.
It's kind of a BioShock vibe to it, kind of that mishmash of tech magic.
Yeah. And there's really interesting, like, I think like one of the most interesting things is there's a part in the story where you can like put your consciousness into like this little robot, and you can use it to unlock things, and then like somebody like steals your body while you're in the robot, and then like you have to like go get your body back. And then like while you're trying to do that, like you get to a point where like, we can just make a body for you, and then like they make a body for you, but it's like not your body. It's like this weird mechanized version of it. It's like this weird like mechanized like pyramid looking version of it, and then then your body ends up dying, and you're just stuck like that.
In an Illuminati pyramid.
Yeah.
All right. For the next game, we have F1 2021, which I don't know what that is. That's just a bunch of numbers.
Numbers.
Yeah, F1 2020 was probably my game of the year last year, because it was, it was my pandemic game, or like really. It's not really like, because if you talk to any of the F1 racers who do a lot of extensive sim racing, none of them are like, yeah, the F1's the game to get. None of them are like, because it's a hard, when you turn off all the assist, it's a pretty hard game. You just realize how hard it is to drive an F1 car, because you can't just jam on the gas or your car will just uncontrollably spin. It's like, oh, there's a lot more nuance to this than I thought. But yeah, it's good for casual people. Like there's a lot of like assists where you can have like the racing line, or you can have it auto brake for you, but I have all that stuff turned off because I want to learn. Yeah, there's always something where it's like a big curve. Like that's where it's like the AI doesn't understand like how big curves work, and like I can pass like 3 people on one curve just because like they're always trying to take the inside line. It's like, I'll just jam on the gas and go around the outside and pass like 3 people. It's like, this is. But then there's like some races where like I just cannot get the racing line down, and like I start at the back of the field because my qualifying time is garbage, but like I can make it up during the race. And I had one cool race where it's like I was obviously gonna lose, and so instead of just restarting the race a bunch, I was like, I'm just gonna go with it. And like I'd knocked my front wing off, and I was like, I'm gonna pull into the pits, and but before I pull into the pits, like somebody wrecks, and then like I pull into the pits and I come out and like I'm first behind the safety car, because everyone else pits too. And it was like, a nice surprise. I was going to lose this race. Now I win.
All right. So the next game we have is Evil Within 2.
Yeah, this is a fairly old game. Did anybody else play Evil Within 2?
No.
I played the demo.
Okay. It's a fantastic game. It's very much like a Resident Evil game, third person horror, a lot of, but it's like you're going inside someone's mind, so it's kind of Inception-esque.
Oh, okay.
But I think this predates Inception. But like, yeah, just what a great game. And it's weird because like the first game was not very well received, so people had like kind of like low standards for this game, and they're like, oh wait, this game is brilliant, and apparently it didn't sell that well, and so it's kind of the end of the series. But it, like, they really had something going here. But there's a lot of crazy stuff in the game, but also there's a lot of silly stuff because that's just kind of what happens when Japanese developers write about Italian Americans and going inside people's minds. It's like, oh, it's like this is a stereotype from the Japanese perspective. Oh, okay. But then you got a lot of cool visual design stuff, and you know, the weird in between world where it's just like this weird white gunk that's covering everything, and there's just like red eyes poking out of it. It's like, what the hell is that thing? It's like, that's a defense mechanism. It's like, what? Isn't this all a computer simulation? It's like, eh.
Well, it was. Kind of chicken ears in the middle, and now we've got plasmic goo.
Yeah, you collect green goo from enemies and use it to buy things.
Oh, okay.
The ultimate in capitalism.
Yep. And next on the agenda, we have Loop Hero.
Has anybody heard about Loop Hero?
No.
Okay. I think it's developed by Russian guys. Oh man, you can, so you don't control the main character. The character just, it's 2D. The character just runs this loop, and then you're kind of given these tiles that you can construct, and then like you're putting like enemies in the character's way, so that they can fight enemies, so that they can level up and they can get new loot, and so like you can add like armor or swords and stuff like that. So you have to like strategically put enemies in their way in order to upgrade them, but you don't ever directly control them. And then there's some like how you build the tiles together. Sometimes they interact in interesting ways. Like if you put like 5 mountain tiles next to each other, like it'll build like a mountain, and then the harpies will come attack your character. A real interesting game, but because you don't control it, like time will just fly away when you're playing Loop Hero. It's like, what the hell? It's 3 hours happened. It's also like it's a roguelike, so you're kind of meant to play it again and again and see if you can win. And I really liked it, but I had to just give up on it. I never beat it. I just had to give up on it. It's like, this is wasting way too much time.
Yeah, very time consuming.
Yeah, ironically.
What games are supposed to be, but sometimes it wears thin.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, I really love Civ games, but like you play one game of Civ, it's like there's your whole day. It's like, oh, I spent 8 hours playing one game, and I'm not even done.
Yeah.
Because you know the Italians attacked my border, and like now it's war. It's like, we gotta stay up for another 3 hours.
So for the next game, we have Demon's Soul. Demons, plural, possessive souls.
Yep. Yeah, that's some weird Japanese writing. That's how it is spelled, exactly. Demons, possessive soul. This is the PS5 version. It's a reboot or a remake of the original from PS3. This is also like this is the progenitor to Dark Souls in those games.
Yes, we talked about those a few times.
So I mean, it's exactly like those, but this was kind of the progenitor. Although actually, I guess these guys have made. There were games they made before the like, what was it, like King's Crusade or something? I can't remember. They made it for the PS1, and apparently they did similar things there too. But like you look at those games and they look so god awful and barely move that it's like I don't think there's any way to appreciate those games whatsoever.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a game where it's like, you know, the story is up to you to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of cool designs. You know, you die and you have to try to go get your souls back, and you know, lots of frustration there. A lot of cool bosses. You know, just a boss that's just a giant. It's made up of a bunch of tiny giant blobs, and they all have shields and spears, and it's because they were like, you know, but it's like it was a group of guy and his phalanx, and then like because of the world turning evil, they just like congealed into this weird blob of spears and shields. But yeah, it's a cool game, and also super frustrating because that's how those games work. I was playing on New Game Plus, and I was like, yeah, now, because like it's one of those games where it's like once you know like how an enemy works, it's like, well, now they're easily dispatchable. And I was playing on New Game Plus, and then like they were just killing me, and I'm like, nah, uninstall, I'm done. I beat the game once, I'm good.
All right. For our next game, we have Astrobot Playroom.
This is the game you get with your PS5.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And it does a lot of cool stuff with the PS5 controller. There's a lot of things where it has like, because like the triggers, they have special, like there's special resistance on the triggers, so it's be like you're actually like trying to pull like a trigger on a gun. That's what it can make it feel like, and it's like surprisingly effective. It's like, oh, that's fucking weird. I've never felt that before. But then like you play so many games, it's like I'll just get in the way. Just let me pull the trigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff on this controller that it takes advantage of. There's a lot of like sensors in here that like vibrate, but it vibrates very specifically. So like when your character's walking on metal or when they're walking on sand, you can tell the difference on how the controller vibrates, what surface they're walking on.
Huh.
Which is cool, but not necessary. It's basically like a 3D platformer. You play as a little robot named Astrobot, and you just kind of go around these areas. And it's also kind of like a history of PlayStation itself. Like you'll go around and discover like a PlayStation 3, and there's a little blob on there and a blurb on it, and you know, this is what was cool about the PlayStation 3, and stuff about all the accessories that came with it, and it ends up being kind of like a museum to PlayStation itself. But it's a pretty cool game.
So this was just demonstrate. This is just a platform demonstration. This is where we were, and this is where we are.
Yep.
Okay.
You know, they did some of that. Like I believe when I was playing Call of Duty Cold War,
Yeah.
they did have the trigger breaks on here, and that's where it's like, this is cool, but it more or less gets in the way. Like, just let me pull the trigger.
And next we have the infamous Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, this is a cool game. It definitely has a lot of problems, and my computer cannot handle it. I mean, it can mostly handle it, but if I'm in a driving sequence and I drive too fast, the computer cannot keep up with everything. I got a bunch of settings where I changed where it could, like, it still looks good and it plays well, but it there's a lot of weird like choices to get that to happen. It wasn't. Usually it's a lot of like you just turn off volumetric fog, and that like saves. You know, it's like, I don't know, something about volumetric fog that just eats up your VRAM. So you turn that off, and then like you can still make the game look good and play well. But yeah, this is from the Witcher team. People are very disappointed in it because there is a ton of bugs in it, but it's as a world and aesthetic, it is fucking cool as hell. I'd say usually something that CD Projekt Red does very well is their side stories, and it kind of feels like there's not really cool side stories in the game. Like you cut because I felt like in The Witcher where you just like, I wonder what's going on over there, and then you uncover some like cool story, and then here it's like, I wonder what's going on over here, and like here's a data pad that explains something. It's like, well, that's kind of lame.
So, yeah, it becomes a reading game.
Which yeah, but yeah, the main story is like, you know, it's fine. It's like a big, you know, mind fuck. You know, Johnny Silverhand is in your head, and you're gonna die and be replaced by Johnny Silverhand, and played by Keanu Reeves.
Oh, okay.
And I still haven't finished it. But.
There's the worst things than dying being replaced by Keanu Reeves. My wife actually asked for that in my will. So, Keanu still hasn't accepted though. So.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to like take over. Has anybody else played any of these games that I'm talking about?
Well, I have one game on the list. I don't know if you played it as well, but
I haven't. Oh yeah, we got some stuff at the end we both played, but yeah.
Well, next we have There Is No Game.
This is a fun point-and-click adventure game where essentially you're trying to play a game, and there's like this voiceover AI that's telling you to go home. It's like, there's no game here. It's like, and you basically just gotta click away and peel away at things until eventually it's like there's a game that's happening. And at some point you end up in something that looks like a LucasArts point-and-click adventure game, like kind of a Escape from Monkey Island or stuff like that.
Okay.
And then at some point there's like live action footage, and like you're in the real world and there's the guy who's like making the game, and then there's some weird evil AI inside the game that starts taking over the world. It's a very fun game. They're pretty short, and but yeah, it's pretty much. I highly recommend if you want to have a fun short time. There Is No Game is your game.
All right, and next we have Immortals: Phoenix Rising.
This is the world's most okayest game.
All right.
It's essentially, they basically kind of made a ripoff of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Which I know you're not familiar with it, but Andrew, you played that, right?
yeah, I played it.
So yeah, it's like that, and it's a bit like God of War. So there's a lot of third-person combat and a lot of combos. You have these abilities. You even have like time slowdown abilities, just like you do in Zelda Breath of the Wild. There's like little like kind of puzzles like all over the world in the same way that there was in Zelda Breath of the Wild, and like it's not like it's all poorly done. It's all done like fairly well. It's not done any better than Zelda. Zelda's still a better game, but it's still like, this game's not bad. So it's like, that's why it's called the world's most okayest game.
All right.
So but I got it for Switch, and that probably was not the platform to get it on, because it plays fine, but it just looks bad on Switch. So, yeah, but it's available for every platform.
I mean, that's more Nintendo's problem. They keep putting out stuff. It's like, it's mobile, but it's 2 generations behind of what you need to play a game.
Yeah,
And it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. That's the point. It's like a party thing. It's just have fun with friends. It's not for serious gamers that like want to spend hours on something. It's for just fucking around. And that's the only problem I have with the Switch is like, there's not enough serious games on that thing to warrant actually buying it, which is fucking sad.
No, I mean, all the Nintendo stuff is good, and there's plenty of like indie games I like on there. But yeah, like big games on there, no. But I don't know. They also have that weird cloud stuff, which I tried, but like it doesn't work for me. Because they had like Control that you could play through their cloud system. It's like, holy shit, you can play Control on a Switch, and it's like, no. You can look at Control on the Switch. Speaking of the Switch, I got a new backplate.
Oh.
Okay.
Because my whole backplate, because I had like fallen asleep and dropped it on the ground, this whole thing was broken and covered in in electrical tape to keep it all together. And I just went online and bought a new backplate and got this weird universe one and put it on. So yeah, now it's not falling apart on me.
Okay.
Until next time I drop it.
All right, for the next game we have Hitman 3.
This is, of course, a continuation of the Hitman franchise, where it's kind of like you go into a level and you figure out what you can do. And they kind of give you general ideas of like, okay, this person needs to die, but like how they die is up to you. And you kind of have to like poke around the security to figure out like where you can go in without being caught, or figure out what costumes you can have on without being caught. If you figure out like what weapons you can conceal. There's a fun trick in the game where you can just like throw anything at people. So you just like they have like a Dr. Pepper knockoff called Dr. Pop, and you can just take a Coke can and it's like you just start throwing at it, and somebody will be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And boom, they're dead. And you just do that with anything. It's just hilarious every time you just throw an object and knock somebody out. There's a glitch where you can do that with a suitcase.
Wow.
And like you'll do this overhead throw, like you're throwing an axe and you throw the suitcase, and if like the person starts running away, the suitcase will just follow them in midair.
Suitcase.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Hitman 3. It's a great game. It looks fantastic. I haven't gone back to it because like they add a lot of stuff usually to those games where they have like special seasons that'll pop up, because there's like one where Sean Bean lent his likeness to it, and like it's like, and it was like available for like a week, where it's like, all right, get in there and try to kill Sean Bean. You only got one chance to do it. And I think this is literally the second time they've had Sean Bean as a character you can kill.
Okay.
So
all right, Hitman 3. Okay, next we have BattleTech.
Andrew, I own this game, but I have not played it, so you'll have to go.
Oh, okay, that's surprising. Okay, so BattleTech is a tactical turn-based strategy game. You outfit your mechs. You basically want to start off with, hey, I just die, I die. Like that's basically like the crux of the game. Because if you play it like more arcadey, which you can, it's probably not as rewarding. I don't probably have the best PC for this. The load times are horrendous, so it took a long time to complete the campaign. But you have a lot of side missions and stuff you can do. It's all time based, so it's just like XCOM and everything else, where you only have a certain time period to do all these things and try and be the best mech outfit you can be. And you can kind of upgrade your ship. You can go for salvage and find all these brutal mechs. But I mean, the game keeps getting harder and harder, so you always try to make sure your pilots are not injured, or have all these nice stats and machines you can tap into. I really love the game. It was fucking fantastic. I started playing it through on Legendary again, but I stopped a couple months ago because, once again, the load times are horrendous. So it takes like 2 hours to play like 2 missions, usually. So I don't have that kind of time in my life to be spending that much time. So yeah, it's a very, very good game, and I think it's only like $40 or $50. Not even that expensive. There's extra content for it, but
yeah, it's been out for a while. But yeah, there's a lot of DLC out for it now. But yeah, I meant to play it. I just didn't. I don't know. There's a lot of strategy games. Like, yeah, that seems cool, but like I buy so many strategy games, I don't play them because I just know. I think literally the last one I bought and played was the remake of Command and Conquer.
Oh, okay.
And I've played Command and Conquer too many times to not play a new strategy game, but
I mean, strategy games is mostly what I play. If you look at the hours on my games, like my highest one's like Rome 2 or Shogun or something like that, like 800, 900 hours.
Yeah, because
you can tell where I spend my time.
Yeah, because I got you that. What was it? Total War. What was Samurai? What was it?
Oh, it was the Three Kingdoms one.
Yeah.
And I played like 8 or 10 hours so far. I'm just trying to figure out, because like the army builds like rock paper scissors, which is kind of like the rest of them, but it's like more explicitly so. So like so far, like I haven't really figured out how the government thing works, and I haven't really figured out how army works. So I've just been waiting to spend time, like where I have 10 hours to sit down and figure out how to play the game. So I mean, so far I like it. I like how everybody's like a fantasy warrior basic kind of thing because you can have that on. That's cool. I know right now they have the Troy like monsters thing out, and that's supposed to be interesting but bad. So, and plus Warhammer 3 comes out beginning of the year again. It was supposed to come out in November, but now it's coming out later.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, 2-minute warning, not a 5-minute warning.
Well, yeah.
Well, we're talking about different games technically. So
Our next game we have Air, Land, and Sea.
Yes.
this is a card game that because Andrew came over and we attempted to play mini card games, but this is the one that was the easiest to understand. Yeah, this is like, yeah, you can just put the cards down and like, is this how the game works? And it's like, yep, that's how easy this game is. It is a really fucking cool game. It is incredibly simple. I'm not sure how much Andrew liked it because I kept beating him.
Well, it just proved how bad I am at strategy.
Well, I think some of the things we didn't understand because there's like a card that says you can flip a card in a theater, and I think it meant any card, but like we kept flipping our own cards. But yeah, so you have like a field of 3. You have Air, Land, and Sea, of course, and then like you only get 6 cards. There's only 18 cards in the deck, and then like you each get 6. It's only a 2-player game, and then like every card the card can only be deployed in a certain theater, or if you deploy it upside down, it can be 2 points in any theater, and you're trying to win at least 2 theaters. And then there is a function of the game where it's like if you're looking at your cards and like, no, these cards suck, you can withdraw, and the earlier withdrawal, the less points your opponent gets. But it's only like first to 12, and so basically if you just like play, if the two of you just play both hands till completion, like the game's over in three turns essentially, but or at least 2. But yeah, it's a cool game, crazy simple, and all I want is a wildly more complicated version of it, but there is not one. So maybe we'll have to make one. I don't know.
I mean, like I said, I think it's basically Gwent, where it's just like you kind of try and figure out, like, hey, I can't win this battle, so I'll withdraw, like you said, or you'll literally like put everything to win one time.
But there's like, oh, we'll get a little bit more on it. But there was like some stuff where it's like we were thinking about like strategies you could use, because there's like some cards that will flip over other cards, and so like you could strategically do something where it's like you have a card that has like a hit of 6 or whatever. It's like a high, but like you could play it upside down, and then at some point during the turn you play a card, or your opponent plays a card that flips it over, and then like, oh, you fucked me, I didn't know that was a high card, and now this completely changes everything. So but it's like incredibly simple. Like it's like, but you can probably make it more complicated. But
yeah, well, I mean, I think simple games are good because it obviously doesn't. It's not like Too Many Bones where it's so complicated. It's like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah. So I have 2. So it's a company called Chip Theory Games. We attempted to play 2 of their games, but they are wildly complicated. But the fit and finish of their stuff is fantastic. Like all the stuff in the game is like feels and looks nice. We could not figure out either of their games on how to play it. We were like watching YouTube videos, and like, I think I'm done trying to figure this out. So we're like, Air, Land, and Sea, we just pulled that out. It's like, how's this work? Oh, we're playing.
All right, well, good deal.
Yeah. It's only like a $12 game too. So
well, for the last game we have Anomia.
So this game is like, you remember in Ghostbusters when he's like doing the psychology studies, he has those cards with like the weird squiggles on it and stuff. So this is a card game where there's like a bunch of cards that have squiggles on it, but then there's a word, and then so everybody starts like laying down a card, and whenever those cards match, you have to like say a phrase that corresponds to what's on the card. And so, like, it's like it interacts with your brain pretty heavily, because they're like, I'm looking for shapes, but then I have to come up with this other thing. So you can feel like you're thinking cross a lot of times. We also found out, like, I think Andrew had the advantage of when he noticed a match, he'd just go, and then like I'd immediately lose any thought I had in my head.
The old bump.
Well, you know, I do what I could for being a lower intelligent person in the room, so like distraction is the best medicine.
And then it probably had the funniest moment where there was a match and he just goes, shit. And so what the card said was verb, and I handed him the card as the point, and I said, well, shit is technically a verb.
That's my Achilles heel. I don't know English. English is my worst topic because I don't know what the fuck punctuation is. I don't really know what the hell verbs, adverbs, pronouns are. It's not really something I like to say to people.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Squares are universals.
oh, okay.
Yeah, because
See, you know more. You know more than me.
But the only way we can kind of make it interesting is like we'd both play two hands, but it only like worked if like it matched crossways, but not sideways, because that didn't work, because then you'd just be playing yourself. So yeah, it's better with more people, because like we had like they have one that's called Cascades, where it's like you're playing cards and then like somebody gets the card, so that you take that card off the field, but then now because that card's away, now there's a new match, and like but you might not notice it, and then like suddenly I'd pick up like 3 points because like he's like, oh shit, then I'd just be noticing matches, and that only happened like twice. But
okay.
but I could see it like I could see that like if you're playing with more people, that happened a lot, and that'd just be a cool thing. But
Yeah.
incredibly simple game, you know, cheap, all that stuff. So it's probably be a really good party game. Yeah, they make like an X version of it, which apparently like all the things are about sex or whatever. So you can get that too. So
I don't know how necessary that one is, but yeah.
yeah, it's like well, Cards Against Humanity exists, so we got to make our adult version of Anomnia. So
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's been times with Cards Against Humanity and Joking Hazard where like spur of the moment shit's been the funniest, but at the same time, I don't know if like since the whole game is like just spur of the moment, like oh fuck, so talk about that. Like maybe it might be a good game. I'll have to check it out.
All right.
I'm not sure. Did you look up what Anomia means, Nathan? Like I don't even know what it means.
No, I never did.
Oh, I can look.
But I can. Hold on. Anomia is a card game. A form of aphasia where the patient is unable to recall the names of everyday objects.
Okay.
Damaged memory.
Yeah, that's kind of what the game does. So,
So it works.
Yep.
All right. Well, we watched a movie this week.
Yeah.
Watched the 1975 neo-noir film Farewell, My Lovely.
I don't know how sure you could call this neo-noir. This just kind of seemed like a noir movie made in modern times.
Yeah, this is a Philip Marlowe novel.
Okay.
That's where all the grizzled, everything you've ever heard about detective stories and like the hard talk and stuff. Yeah, this Raymond Chandler was the guy who originated a lot of that. Produced by Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yep.
Starring Robert Mitchum, Charlotte Ramping, John Ireland, Sylvia Miles, Anthony Zerbe, and a strange, appearance by Harry Dean Stanton.
Yep.
As a corrupt detective who acts just like Harry Dean Stanton.
I think as I kept falling asleep to this movie, so I missed the Sylvester Stallone parts because he's also in this movie.
Yeah, his big part in this movie is he shoots what's her name? The mistress of the whorehouse in the back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he's trying to sleep with. I think she's his son, or he's her son, and he's sleeping with one of the girls, and she doesn't like it. So she starts beating up the girl who was sleeping with him, and he shoots her. That's how Philip Marlowe escapes. Because remember, he pulls a gun out on her, and she laughs. It's like, oh, you're just going to fall over here in 5 minutes. All I got to do is wait. Yeah, this was an interesting movie. It was just kind of it's an oddball movie.
Yeah.
It's like because this is set in the 30s in Los Angeles, but it was filmed in the 70s. And Robert Mitchum does a good job, but he seems a little old for the role.
Yeah.
And everyone else gives a good performance. I mean, it's an entertaining movie. It's definitely a movie of its time. Why it was made was interesting.
Oh, why is
This
that?
was a remake of there was a movie that was made, but it was called Murder My Sweet, and it was made in the 40s.
Huh.
And it basically had a lot of the who was it? Yeah, it had a lot of the same people involved in it.
Huh.
My computer just locked up, so I gotta wait for that.
I like that the main like thrust of the movie is the guy who's just the boxer guy, just a big brutish guy. Which I saw some trivia on him.
Malloy, yeah, Jack O'Halloran. He's actually a boxer.
Yep, yeah, real boxer. He at some point was slated to fight Muhammad Ali, but he got knocked out surprisingly by some guy who then they had a rematch and he knocked that guy out in the rematch, but then he never got a shot with Ali and then came into films.
We would know him best as like the mute evil guy in the Superman series.
Yeah, he's one of Zod's crew, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
At least that's where I recognize him from. He's been in a lot of, but this he was a very young and menacing guy. I don't know how tall was he. He had to be like, he's 6'6". Okay, yeah,
okay,
so he's a big tall guy too.
Yeah, I like when he's like, I wouldn't shoot him. I think he'd just make him mad.
First movie.
Yeah.
And then Robert Mitchum, it was cool to see him because I don't know when he went out on movies, but I think it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to see him as an older man, but still someone very much.
When I was quickly looking at his Internet Movie Database page, like what's he known for, and I saw that it was like the original Cape Fear.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which I haven't seen it, but I was like, I know it's was the Scorsese one, but I know it was based on something.
Oh. Yeah, so it was fun to see him as a younger man acting because he does do the tough guy really well, but also kind of the sardonic tough guy.
Yeah,
like a guy who would sidestep danger. It's like as much as.
Was it? Yeah, because it like has like voiceovers and stuff like that. It's like, okay, this is a class. That's why I say it's like a classic noir film. It moves along pretty well because it's like a short movie, but they kind of get a lot out there.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons I chose it. It's like, the runtime is an hour and 30 minutes. It's like, I think I can do that.
That's a normally paced movie.
Yeah.
He also played Marlowe in the sequel in 1978, The Big Sleep, which is a film I think more people have heard of, but it wasn't as good.
Huh? Yeah, I recognize that title. I never heard of this before.
No, this was kind of a. Oh, what was the weird thing about this movie? Because this was like when rights were changing hands for making, and they wanted the full rights to use this. They wanted to be able to use the name and everything.
Yeah.
And this one also actually looks like, it looks like a film from the 40s or something.
Yeah,
It does a good job with some of those movies are too bright almost. Like this one, it's all dark. It's dark Los Angeles.
Yeah, like when there's just a random drive-by. Was there a reason those guys were shooting at him? Like he recently just got out of jail and just had a problem with them, or is that's just what happens in LA?
Well, that was the crew that was trying to, because everyone wanted Moose. Everyone was trying to manipulate Moose because he had $80,000 that he stole from a.
Oh, okay. I thought, he said he stole 80,000, but I assumed that he didn't stash it. I thought they took it away from him. But okay.
No, he didn't know. I mean, he gave it to someone to hold who was Velma.
Okay, yeah.
Helen Gale, played by Charlotte Rampling. But yeah, he was basic. I mean, he was just actually kind of the prototype big dummy. He really loved this woman. All evidence to the contrary, because he was in prison 8 years. Like, she never wrote, but I know she still loves me. It's like, oh, you think so? Okay. I'm not going to argue with you. Yeah, they had the casual drive-by. I had a couple of those, actually, where it didn't seem to gather a lot of things, a lot of police interest. And then when they go into like the after hours club that's in the, well, I can't say what they say, but let's say where the black people were living in Los Angeles at that time. It was known as a certain part of town. And yeah, like a shootout occurs and people get killed and the cops are like, what are you doing, Marlo? Why are you hanging out here? You know, and it was like, oh, okay, this does capture the time.
And there's a weird one where, like, he's on a second case and like he's taking a guy out to like a drop off point and then like he just gets knocked out and then he wakes up and the guy's dead and the police are like taking him away.
Yeah, Marriott, a guy who is basically implied that he's a homosexual, but they never say it.
Yeah.
Somebody stole a face. I'm trying to say this right. Fesu jade necklace, which was worth $150,000, and this is 1930s bucks, so it might as well be worth $1 million. And he's going out with Marriott because Marriott wants him along as muscle to pay the ransom. Because Philip Marlowe gets a lot of concussions throughout the course of this movie. He gets knocked out a bunch, like 3 times I know of, and then wiped out with, they give him a needle full of drugs and he's flipped out. But yeah, so that's what Marriott was. That guy hired him, but it was related to the same woman, because you don't know that Velma and the judge's wife, Helen Gray or Grell, are the same person.
Oh.
Until Marlowe puts it together, and you find out on the boat, in the end, when Moose is like, Velma, and she, all reason goes out the window.
Now, Andrew, did you get to watch this movie?
No, I actually didn't have the time. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I literally today was like, shit, I need to get this done. I need to deep clean my house and clean out the fridge and do a bunch of stuff, get a haircut and stuff. Sorry, I did not have time today.
Yeah, it's all right.
It sounded like a good movie, but at the same time, I literally played Tiny Towns twice with my wife, and played what the hell is the other one now? The other one once, just to get the hang of it. Splendor, yes, because I wanted to make time for that, because I don't feel like I make enough time for my wife sometimes. So yeah, sorry, I didn't play it.
Oh, that's fine.
I mean, I fell asleep to it, so I'm not like the greatest to talk about the movies.
It was a good movie. It's something to watch. It's kind of like that interesting 70s film craft. This was a little more by the numbers because it had strong source material. So there weren't any like spectacular cinematic scenes, but it was a very good looking movie.
Yeah.
And it kind of
it's somewhat approachable to what Chinatown looked like, but like not as cinematic, but
yeah, because Chinatown was like, it was a movie that looked good, but you definitely knew it was a more modern movie talking about an older time.
Yeah.
Where this movie, it's like, oh, you could believe it was, except for being in color, you could believe this was shot in the 40s. And Robert Mitchum's a great actor, and he does a good job with these kind of, these archetypes. Philip Marlowe is like the ultimate archetype, hard-boiled detective character.
Yeah, a lot of good one-liners, which I've forgotten them, but they're great one-liners.
Yeah, because him and Harry Dean Stanton, who's known as Detective Rolfe, they don't like each other because Harry Dean Stanton plays that character like a creep, and when Marlowe's sitting there and he's talking to the head of detectives, and Rolfe is making comments, and he's like, every time you're in the room, I want to give you a fin, which means give you a Mickey to knock you out like a drug or something. Like, I want to drug your drink because you're such a weirdo. And it's like, there's some very like old timey. There's great dialogue in this, and it's amazing when it comes out. Like when someone's got a gun in your face, and it's just there's so many good lines in this like that. It's worth watching. And like I said, this was pretty much a paint by numbers type movie with good source material. Nothing unique about the director's style or anything. Everyone acted well, and it was only weird because when you see Jerry Bruckheimer as one of the producers, it's like, oh, is the building gonna explode?
Yeah, Jerry Bruckheimer without Don Simpson. So.
Yeah. So this was definitely a cool movie. It's worth watching. It's a quality movie. It's different. You're not going to see. I don't make movies like this anymore. There's no one to watch them because that detective story stuff is sort of, at least that kind of detective story stuff is sort of out. Because you can't just run around and shoot people, and it's finally at the end of the movie when the cops who are basically being paid off by this guy, his name is actually Brunette. One of the main bad guy, and the cops are finally like, I don't care if he's paying us off. There's 7 dead bodies so far. We got to do something about this. And so the cops team up, come in at the end of the day to save Philip Marlowe on the boat. But really, like, the bad person gets killed, and all the major bad people, like the old judge and Mr. Burnett, they sort of like, we're going to continue with our lives. Because they freely admit, like, yeah, I own the town, I get people elected, I pay off the cops. And Philip Marlowe's just like, yeah, it's the price of business. I get, everyone's sort of like, there's no one's like tilting at windmills in this. It's like, it's a hard world, and we all got our place in it. And it's funny to hear him at the newsstand with, like, his newsstand guy is also his helper. He procures boats and gives him a place to sleep when he's been beat up in a whorehouse and drugged by the madam and witnesses her murder. He wasn't doing anything in the whorehouse. He was just that was one of the parts of the organized crime groups that get him. But they'll be reading the newspaper, and the news guy's like, what do you think of this Hitler fella? He just invaded Russia. And it's like, that's so weird, because people probably talk like that, like, what's going on with this Hitler guy? So yeah, it was a good movie, and I enjoyed it. And it kept my interest while I was attaching, bow lines to a World War I U-boat.
As it should.
But that's all I have for this week, guys.
All right.
Yep.
So this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew.
Goodbye, America.